Hello. Welcome to the Daily Reddit, where people share their experiences with malicious compliance. Only do what is in my job title? Fine, good luck paying employees. So, I work for a construction company as an inventory admin. My job is to basically schedule counts of our warehouse and input the numbers they give me for inventory. Then try to see what the problem is when the numbers on the last count and current count don't add up. There is a little bit more to it, but I will not bore you with the specifics. The problem with this job is that when you have been doing it long enough and are good at it, there is less work to do. In the beginning, when counting one rack out of 60 racks of material would take a few days, it was fine because I was always busy. But now that everything is in order, the entire warehouse can be counted in 3 days. This leaves me bored for most of the time. So, to fix this, I studied up on our cloud-based ERP service that we use for all internal and external transactions and have become sort of an expert on it. Every single aspect of this company uses this ERP service to do their job. Timesheets, HR, payroll, accounting, scheduling, management, manufacturing, ordering from vendors, delivering, inventory, etc. all runs through this ERP service. So it is very important that this service is up and running perfectly 24/7. I became so proficient in this service that our VP decided to cut ties with our consultants of the ERP because I could do what they did but better, quicker, and much cheaper. For reference, we were paying these consultants $5,000 a month just to be on standby if we needed them for some sort of problem that could arise from using this ERP, and had to dish out more money to fix those problems depending on how many hours of their time was spent to fix said problems. Not sure on their exact rate, but it was something like $200 an hour, and they took weeks to fix anything, while I could fix the problem in time for my daily afternoon shit break. I never got an official job title or raise of any kind for being an expert on this service. The company just saw me being able to do it and let me fix things that happened, so they no longer needed the outside help. I wasn't too upset because it gave me something due, so I was glad to help the company save money, even if none of that money fell my way. Skip ahead a few months. We now have a new warehouse manager, and someone in the warehouse fucked something up in inventory by sending a bunch of materials to the wrong job with no records of it being shipped. We are talking $500,000 fuck up here. In the same day, our ERP had an update that caused a bunch of bugs with our accounting department. So, I decided to work on the ERP problem first because the warehouse fuck-up is more of a delay fuck-up and not actually stopping anybody from doing their job at the moment, while this accounting problem means our bills are not able to be paid. You can guess what kind of issues we will have if bills are not paid. The ERP bugs turn out to be quite big and numerous, so it ends up taking me a couple days to figure out, but I fix it before any bills are actually due and decided to take lunch a little early to celebrate a victory. Crisis averted. New warehouse manager storms into my office after I get back from lunch and is livid. Apparently, the bosses were pinning the blame on him for the warehouse fuck-up. And considering he is the one who oversees shipments and personnel in the warehouse, the blame is rightfully placed. He starts laying into me, asking why I have not fixed the problem yet. Yelling and screaming like a child. I tried explaining that I was fixing an ERP issue and have not had time to look at the warehouse problem yet. He gets even more angry and notes that it is funny how I have time to take early lunches but not do my job. That started to piss me off, but I held my tongue and kept calm about the situation. He then ordered me to only do what is in my job title and to leave the ERP bullshit to the people competent enough to handle it, as he put it. Since this guy was technically my supervisor, I had no choice but to obey. I asked him to send me that in writing, and he snarks and storms back into his office. 5 minutes later, I get an email stating that under no circumstances am I to work on anything related to ERP unless it involves inventory. Cue malicious compliance. I do nothing but inventory from that point forward, knowing damn well that we would be essentially coasting until we hit a problem that I would refuse to fix. Sure enough, not even a week later I get an email from HR that some sort of bug in the ERP system was preventing them from accessing payroll to pay employees this week. I reply an apology that I am no longer able to work on ERP bugs due to supervisor and to refer to the ERP system help guide for further assistance. I knew the help guide was not going to help her in the slightest, but it was no longer my problem, so I was not going to deal with it. Skip a few days later to Friday. I checked my bank account in the morning before getting to work and laughed because there was no money deposited. That problem never got fixed. I hurry up and get to work, excited to see the chaos unfold. And what I was expecting was an understatement. When I show up to work, I see the entire warehouse staff of 50 people walking out of the front door. I stopped one and asked why they are leaving, and they replied with, "I didn't get paid today, so I am not coming back until I do." I go into the office and see the warehouse manager in a panic. He has jobs that need material and nobody to load it onto trucks or deliver. I ask him if he needs help with anything, and he just screams at me to leave his office because he is getting phone calls out the ass from superintendents of jobs asking why our material has not arrived yet. I pass by HR on the way to my office and see a bunch of the bosses huddled up over her computer with her with angry and confused expressions on their face, I guess trying to figure out the problem. I felt bad for her because it really was something out of her control, but I knew she would ultimately be okay because she had been there for so long that they would never fire her. When I get to my office, I see the VP waiting for me there. He has a very pissed off expression on his face. When we get inside, he demands to know why I did not fix the problem in HR when she emailed me about it. I replied that I am no longer allowed to work on ERP problems as it is not in my job title. He has the most shocked look on his face and asked why all of a sudden I had a change of heart. I show him the email from warehouse manager and I could see the dots connect in his head. He immediately storms out and I see him heading straight to the warehouse manager's office. They were in there for a few hours, but eventually he comes back to my office. He seems calmer now and asks me politely if I can fix the problem in HR and if I can resume fixing the ERP if needed. At this point, I liked the relief of responsibility and told him I would only do it if he put it officially in my job title along with a raise. His calmness turned to anger again and he says, "I cannot believe you," as he storms out and returns to his office. A few hours later, he sends out a mass email that he has hired the old ERP consultants to fix the problem and that next week, everyone would be paid for the money they are owed, along with the money they earned if they return to work. This one surprised me as he would rather pay over $60,000 a year to consultants than give me a few extra bucks an hour for better work. I think he expected me to change my mind and just do it for my own paycheck, but I decided to wait because I knew how these consultants were, and if they managed to fix this problem in a week, I would streak naked through the office. Most of the warehouse staff agreed to return, but were still upset about not getting paid. Sure enough, next Friday comes around. Nobody gets paid again. At this point, it is becoming a real problem and the entire staff is becoming agitated. They have bills to pay. I even heard a bunch of the warehouse talking about some competitors nearby they could go work for. At this point, I even considered just fixing the problem because the warehouse didn't deserve to be treated like that due to poor management. Maybe I am the asshole here for this, but I am severely underpaid and can barely afford my apartment. There is no reason I should do extra work for free. That same day, the VP returns to my office and hands me papers. These papers said that I would be promoted to a newly created position that dealt with inventory/ERP upkeep. It would be its own department and he would be my direct supervisor, also came with a hefty raise. All I had to do was sign and agree. I looked up at him after reading the paper and he had the saddest look on his face. "Please just sign it," The consultant said it would take them weeks to get around to fixing it due to the high volume of clients they have taken on, and we cannot keep skipping paychecks. I happily signed it and immediately got to work on the HR issue. Managed to even fix it that same day. It was just a simple problem with the permissions of HR and payroll in the ERP due to the update. Work during my planned vacation? Then have to pay me extra when I leave. I'd been working at this company for about 3 years. I had been consistently growing in my role and eventually was given a project to own, with 1 to 2 other team members if needed, but it was a major project, with a quick turnaround. I determined I could do it myself, though it would be tight, and since I was hoping for a promotion, I took on the project solo. I was able to deliver the project slightly ahead of schedule, and with better quality than expected, which allowed us to make a huge sale. The head of the company gave me an award at an all-hands meeting for the work I did, and my boss let me know I was on track for an end-of-year promotion, with a nice pay raise and more responsibilities. But I was needed in another part of the business, so I was going to have to transfer under a new manager that was notoriously hard to work with. I transferred to this manager, and the first meeting we had to get on the same page. I brought up that I had a 3-week planned vacation in 4 months. I had never taken vacation, so had 6 weeks saved up and did not want to start losing it. He told me, of course, that would be fine and we would be able to make it work. About a week later, we have our first meeting with our product team. They had a new, large project idea and wanted it to be released in just 3 months. As my team looked over the details, we knew this was a 6 to 8 month project at best, and it would be better to deliver it in smaller increments, so they still had something to show in 3 months, or we would need to push out the schedule. My boss was adamantly against both, so throughout the next week he made us have last-minute 3 to 4 hour brainstorming sessions every day, but he would not even tell us until around 3 p.m., forcing all of us to work late every day that week. At the end of the week, there was no way we could figure out to deliver everything on the shorter timeline, and so my boss asked me to stay behind after the meeting. For another hour, he railed against me, saying I was failing at this project and that he could not see me getting a good annual review in 4 months, and that a promotion wasn't even on the table. This annual review would also include the project I had just received an award for, and is supposed to encompass 12 months of work, but he was basing this off the first 2 weeks on this new team. At this point, I knew he was ready to use me as a scapegoat for his bad management and started applying elsewhere. We continued working on the project, and sure enough, at the end of 3 months, we were still far from being able to deliver, and my boss was getting heat from up above. Right around this time, I received an offer for another company that would be the promotion I wanted, and an even larger pay increase. I accepted the offer and negotiated my start date to be after my vacation, now 3 weeks away. That same day, my boss calls me into his office and tells me we need to talk about this vacation. I reminded him that we had talked about it months before and that everything is booked, flights, hotels, etc. He would not let up and told me there was no way I could take 3 weeks off with how behind schedule we are. He told me I could go on my trip, but I could not take vacation and would be expected to be online during our business hours throughout the trip, 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. local time in my vacation spot. Cue malicious compliance. Every morning while on vacation, I would log on at 4 a.m., check emails, answer questions on our internal chat, and do the minimum work expected, logging off as soon as it hit 1 p.m., all without burning any vacation. With 1 week left in vacation, I requested a conference call with my boss to give him my 2 weeks notice. He was shocked and tried everything to get me to stay and finish out the project, including bringing back up a possible promotion. I told him I had already accepted a job with a start date upcoming. I worked my last 2 weeks before moving on to my new job. Because my boss required me not to take vacation, the company had to pay out all of my accrued vacation once I left, a little less than 7 weeks at this point, including the 3 weeks I had originally planned to take. Now short-staffed, I heard from other coworkers that the project missed 2 more adjusted deadlines, and eventually the manager was demoted before being let go from the company. About 6 months later, the head of the first company asked me to lunch to offer me a role taking over my former boss's old position. I negotiated an even higher pay increase, as well as company equity, and ended up going back there for 3 more years. Want me at work on time? Of course. At my previous job, I always arrived about 10 to 15 minutes early to get settled in and get my computer up and running, get logged into all my mail and accounts, pull up all my tabs and whatnot. It took my computer about 10 minutes or so to boot up and get up to speed. One morning I arrived at work about 5 minutes early instead of my usual 10 minutes. I guess I scuttled up the stairs to make sure I was up and running by 8, that is, to make sure I'm in the desk with my computer on at 7:55 at the latest. Not 10 minutes later, my boss, not my direct supervisor, comes over and says he saw he jogging through the parking lot. He asked me, in that underhanded confrontational way when one knows the answer already, if I was late that morning. I explained just as I have in this post. He says, "Oh, okay, and that's that." I look at the clock. It's like 8:02. I think to myself, oh, so that's what kind of person you are. Got it. If you want me to arrive on time, I will. From then on, I go about my business, still arriving at the usual time 7:50 or so, but instead of setting up, I just set my stuff down and, oh, what a nice morning outside, I think I might take a little walk around the office park for 10 minutes or so. Maybe I might go down to the lobby and get a cup of coffee or something. Maybe I might sit at my desk on my phone. After all, it's not technically business hours yet, right? Then, at exactly 8, I'll turn everything on and let my computer spend the next 10 minutes booting up and get logged in. I did the math. 2 minutes late would have costed the company 63 cents. I continued to work there for 6 more months before I got a better, salaried job elsewhere, doing the same thing every morning. 10 minutes a day, 5 times a week, for 6 months, that's over $400. Not a lot of money, really, but a hell of a lot more than 63 cents. Make sure his store is the first one you deliver. Consider it done. After I left active duty service, serving on board a ship, all I wanted to do is drive, so in 1999 I got a driving job delivering meat in Southern California. It was a tough job, dealing with traffic, and my schedule was always tight, with 16 to 20 deliveries each day to local markets. I was mostly given inner-city routes with markets with limited space for mid-sized delivery trucks. One of my weekly stops was a small market owned and run by an Iraqi immigrant. I will call him Ali. Ali was always scheduled to be my 5th or 6th stop and would always complain to me why I would show up that late, after 9 a.m. each time. He said he wanted to the first one of the day. I told him I knew he opened each day after 8 a.m. each weekday and that I start my route at about 6:15 a.m. Plus, I don't schedule my route. If he wanted to make sure he was the first delivery of the day, he would have to call Steve, our delivery route supervisor. Ali in fact called Steve, because the very next week I received special instructions that read, "Make sure Ali's market is your first delivery of the day." I had my normal amount of stops that day, about 18, and I knew they all will be pushed back at least 2 hours because I knew Ali won't open until 8 a.m. and he will not open the rear door until an hour later. The rear door was for deliveries and trash bin access. I began driving at my usual time. I arrived at Ali's market 15 minutes later. Ali's market is closed. I had my orders. I will make sure Ali's Market is the first one of the day. I park and wait. 8 o'clock came and Ali shows up. He drives his old Benz around the back of my truck and parks, and walks inside through the back door. I wait for him to open the front and he ignores me. He was busy pretending to supervise the cashier, intentionally ignoring me, so I walk to the meat counter on the back. The guy tells me he was not allowed to take deliveries, that I had to wait for Mr. Ali. At this point, I could have gone to make 2 or 3 deliveries and then return, but I had my very specific order. As I was walking towards the front to exit the market, I grabbed a newspaper, paid for it, and then told Ali, who was just standing there looking at me, "Let me know when you are ready to take your order. You know where I parked."
Ali didn't say a word. He was apparently taking revenge for all these years for his small city market not being the #1 priority of a meat distributor who delivered beef, pork, chicken, cheese, and other refrigerated products from over 12 distribution points throughout the United States.
Steve arrived to his desk right after 10 a.m. The first thing he saw on his computer screen was an alert of my truck sitting inert for 4 hours. He called me all in a rage, demanding I explain to him why my truck was sitting for all that time. I explained that I was following his order to make sure I delivered to Ali's Market first. Steve hanged up and called Ali. Whatever Steve told Ali made Ali to get his whinny butt out of his crappy little market and take delivery of his meat order, about 14 boxes of product, if I recall correctly. I then began to rush through the rest of my stops, not wasting time at all, and at the end of my day I was the last driver back to the warehouse. I got an extra $80 on overtime because Ali cried for not being the first delivery of the day. I never returned to see Ali again. Apparently we dropped his whinny butt as a customer.